Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Very warm good morning to everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. I welcome you back to today's session of the Hindu Newspaper Analysis. I hope all of your preparation is going right on track. To aid your preparation, we are back here once again to analyze today's Hindu newspaper, where we will be discussing the most important news stories from both the mains and from the prelims examination point of view. Good morning everyone. Good morning. Before we begin with the day's topics, a quick reminder, as you know, the Mega Scholarship Program is still running because many of the aspirants wanted it to continue even further. This will run till the 12th of June. All that you have to do to register is click on the link given in the pinned comment section and you will be able to register for yourself. Now, these are the topics that we have taken up for today's discussion. The first topic that we will be discussing is about how the Delhi police is not being able to handle the wrestlers' protest. This article is mainly about what is it that the law says, what should the Delhi government do, the Delhi police do, and what is it that the wrestlers also need to change in their protest. The second article that we have here is about India-China issues. It talks about what changes need to be made in the line of actual control. The third article will be about the problem of deep fakes. The reason why it is in the news is just a few days back, there was a fake photo of the wrestlers showing them smiling, sitting in the bus. There were a lot of rumors about it. It turned out to be a fake photo. So we'll be discussing what the deep fake is and how do we manage this issue. Then from the prelims examination point of view, we will be discussing first the Higgs boson decay, whose search is being continued by the scientists. There is a recent discovery made about how the Higgs boson decays into some other kind of subatomic particles. Then we will be discussing the latest NIRF ranking, in which IIT-Madras again is at the #1 spot. And in the end, we will be discussing how satellites and artificial intelligence can now detect if the cotton cultivation is organic or not. These are all the topics that we have taken up for today's discussion. Without waiting any further, let's quickly begin with the very first article. The first article that we have here, as I said, is mainly about the advice given with respect to the wrestlers' protest. Now, I am very sure all of you have seen and have been following the protests of the wrestlers at Delhi's Jantar Mantar, what their demands are. We have also discussed about them multiple times. So if we have discussed that multiple times, what brings this article now in the newspaper? How is this relevant? How is this different as compared to what we have done so far? Now in this article, the author here himself is a former DGP of Chhattisgarh, Mr. R.K. Vij, writes very frequently for the Hindu newspaper. In fact, in this article, he is suggesting that the law that we have, it is not being followed by the Delhi police. On the other hand, the wrestlers also need to understand that before a thorough investigation can be conducted, you cannot demand anyone to be sent to prison. In any of such cases, please remember, you don't have to remember each and every fact about the actual case. Rather than that, from the examination point of view, you have to focus on what are the laws in picture, what are the laws under which the person is being punished, how do the laws work, what are the reforms needed, etc. So make sure that you focus on that. Now, there have been multiple cases that have been filed against Mr. Brij Bhushan Sharan, that is the head of the Wrestling Federation of India, the person in question. Interestingly, one of the complaints of sexual harassment filed against him has been filed by a minor. Now in India, we have a specific law called POCSO, P-O-C-S-O, which stands for Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. This POCSO Act mainly talks about sexual harassment cases of a minor. Who is a minor? Minor means below 18. Now, the author here says that there are many problems in this case. Let's look at them one by one. The first issue in this case was that the Delhi police did not register the FIR for a long time. The Delhi police only registered the FIR after the Supreme Court of India ordered the Delhi police to register the FIR. Why? The Delhi police had said that we are first investigating whether the charges are true or not. The Delhi police said Only if the charges would be found to be true, only then we will register the FIR. The author here says that this is the first violation of the law. The author says if the FIR is being registered, or someone wants the FIR to be registered, the complaint, if it is of a cognizable offense means if it's a serious crime. If the complaint is of a cognizable offense, the police must file the FIR without any investigation. If the person who is registering the complaint says it's a very serious offense, then the police should not have to wait for the time that the FIR will only be registered once the investigation is complete. Investigation can happen later on. First, the Supreme Court has said that FIR compulsorily has to be registered. This was the first violation by the Delhi police. The Delhi police could have investigated that later, but they delayed the FIR just because they did not conduct the investigation. Second thing, the author also says that just because FIR has been delayed for many months doesn't mean the charges are false. In many cases, maybe the person who is a victim in this case may not be willing to come forward, may not have the courage to come forward. In many cases, the police might delay the filing of the FIR. In all such cases, just because there is a delay in the FIR, that doesn't mean the charges are not true. The charges have to be investigated independently, and the pace at which the FIR has been filed has no connection to it. The author also here talks about the narco test. I am sure all of you have heard of this also. The wrestlers had announced that if people don't trust us, we are ready to undergo the narco analysis test as well. I am sure all of you would have at least heard of what the narco test. Now the problem with narco test is not conducted on the victim. Narco test is conducted either on the accused or on the witness, whether they are speaking the truth or not. But you cannot just conduct a narco test on a victim to see if the person is actually telling the truth or not. So the question of narco test also goes out of the window. All these things have been highlighted here in this article in favor of the wrestlers. On the other hand, the author here also is making a point that you cannot just arrest a person on the basis of all these charges. The author here says that all the allegations made by the wrestlers are about sexual assault at the workplace. All these, even if they are found to be true, maximum punishment that they can actually give to the person is 7 years and not more than that. Now, what is the problem in this case? The problem in this case is when you have any sentence where maximum judgment can only be, or where maximum punishment can only be 7 years, you cannot automatically arrest the person. In this case, you can only arrest the person if there are possibilities that he would be tampering with the evidence or making a threat. So if the person is not tampering with the evidence, if he is not making a threat, in that case, he said the police cannot automatically arrest the person. Only if the police thinks that yes, the person has to be arrested, only if the police thinks that yes, there are reasons to believe the person would have committed the crime, only then an arrest could happen. So on one hand, the author here says that yes, that what the wrestlers are doing, Delhi police did not do right by them. But on the other hand, he is also saying that if you look at what the wrestlers are demanding, you cannot automatically arrest a person. Yes, there are serious allegations. Yes, the investigation should go on, but that cannot be the end. The author here says that the need of the hour is that we need to have a timely investigation. For example, the author says that if there is any crime with imprisonment of less than 10 years, the investigation should go and be completed within 60 days. Do you remember just a few days back, I had discussed with you the concept of default bail. You remember that default bail concept we had discussed just a few days back? What was a default bail concept? The concept of default bail was that if, let's say, the police has been given 60 days to file the charge sheet. In 60 days, if the police is not being able to file the charge sheet, in the 60 days, if the police is not being able to investigate the matter, then the person should get default bail by himself. That is what the concept of the default bail is. Also, the author says the POCSO Act charge should be taken very seriously. Why? Because the POCSO Act has been made very tough in such a manner that if a person is charged under POCSO, in that case, it is assumed that the person is guilty and the person has to prove that I am not guilty. Please understand this. In usual cases, you are assumed to be innocent until proven guilty. You all would have heard that I am innocent until proven guilty. That is all fine. But the problem with POCSO, not the problem, but the feature of the POCSO law is, under POCSO, if you are charged, you are presumed that yes, you are guilty. It is your responsibility now to prove that no, I have not committed the crime. This is where the POCSO Act is different. Thus, under the POCSO Act, the police must put the onus on the accused to prove that no, he is not guilty. In this case, if the investigation doesn't go on, if timely charge sheet is not filed, the wrestlers should also go and approach the Delhi High Court to see if the police is doing their job properly. This is what the author here is saying. Now, the author here in this entire write-up has made a mention of two very important points. First, the narco test. And I'm sure all of you would know about what narco test is. It remains in the news. There are many videos also available online. In narco test, basically, the simple idea is there is a drug called sodium pentothal that is inserted into a person's body, injected into the body, and it is believed that the person would now go into a state where you would not have control over your neurotic system, so you will not be able to make up stories. That is why it is assumed that under the narco test, the person cannot lie, because to lie you need to have certain imagination, and this drug kills your imagination. Narco test, right now, it's a very interesting kind of a concept of how narco test should be allowed, should not be allowed. For example, if you look at narco test right now, narco test can be conducted but only if the person agrees to it. You cannot conduct a narco test without the permission, without the consent of the person involved. Also, whatever the person says in the narco test, you cannot automatically use this as an evidence in the court. You have to prove that by other sources. So narco test does happen in India, but it is not something that you can use full proof in every investigation. The other thing that the author focuses on is the POCSO Act of 2012. Now, the POCSO Act in itself has a lot of very, very interesting features. As I said earlier, one interesting feature of the POCSO Act is that you will be presumed that you are guilty unless you can prove that no, I have not committed the crime. Another very interesting part of the POCSO Act is it is actually gender neutral. So it's not just about sexual harassment of girls, it also includes boys. So it doesn't matter whatever gender you are from, if you are below 18 years of age, you are harassed sexually, this law is here to protect you. It also defines what are considered as sexual abuse. It talks about pornography, harassment, penetrative or non-penetrative offenses, all of these which leave any mental or physical mark on the child would be considered as an offense under POCSO. Special courts have also been set up to make sure that these kind of cases are heard under the POCSO Act. This is what the POCSO Act is all about. Please do read about it in detail. It is a lot in the news. It was in the news earlier as well. It's again a lot in the news. It has been discussed time and time again in multiple articles. That was our first article for the day. Before I go on to the second one, let me quickly take up if there are some comments. I have a comment, narco test is not dependable for plaintiff. No, so narco test, as I said earlier, first it can only be conducted if the person on whom it is being conducted gives the consent to it. And second, whatever the person says automatically will not be considered as a proof. For example, let's say in the narco test, the person says that yes, I committed the crime. No, that will not be taken as an evidence. If the person says, let's say that I have hidden my revolver or my gun in my house, and then the police goes and find that gun, then that is evidence. But just because the police says that yes, or the person says that yes, I have a gun, I committed the crime, just saying this in the narco test will not be used as an evidence. That is how it works. Kishan has a question, POCSO is non-bailable? Yes, POCSO is a non-bailable offense, or it talks about non-bailable offenses. Mridula is saying, can you make clear about default bail? Mridula, we discussed about default bail earlier. In simple terms, what default bail is, for any investigation, the police gets certain number of days. Let's say police got 60 days, that in 60 days you have to come and file the charge sheet. Now within 60 days, if the police could not file the charge sheet, then automatically the bail should be given. That is called the default bail. Ram is saying difference between sexual harassment and POXO Act. POXO Act deals with sexual harassment against minors. That is what the POXO Act is. It is much tougher. Brunda, this would be good enough. I won't suggest you to read newspaper after the class. Then I have a question. Shivani, as I said, POXO Act applies to people who are less than 18 years. That is the only condition. So if the accused has assaulted, sexually harassed a person who is below 18 years, that is when the POXO Act applies. As simple as that. Okay. Rahul is saying, can't the wrestlers bring the victims against whom the crime is done? Then the police has to definitely for their work. No, so Rahul, that is not how it works. FIR has been registered. Police is investigating the matter. That is the present status. Police is saying they are investigating the matter. If we think that yes, someone is guilty, we will arrest them. Okay, let's go ahead then. The second article that we have here is about India-China relations, mainly at the border, at the LAC, that is the line of actual control. Now, as you know, India and China have had multiple disputes at the border areas, especially since the Galwan Valley clashes since 2020. The disputes have become much more serious. There have been confrontations between the Indian and the Chinese soldiers at multiple places along the line of actual control. And the problem is, despite multiple rounds of talks, despite the two sides talking to each other, we have not really had any solution to this. Now, what do we do about it? This is what the author is saying. The author here gives a proper reality check. He says that it is very, I would say, kiddish to expect a war to happen and to expect that one side will win the war, the other side will just lose the war. That is not how it works. If a war happens, it would be detrimental to all the parties, despite whatever the politicians might promise, despite the big claims that many people may make. But a war, if India has to fight a war against China, it would not be easy for India in any way whatsoever. And that is why he says that at the end of the day, we must try and resolve these disputes in a peaceful manner. As you know, China has been making multiple claims over the Indian territories, be it the entire Arunachal Pradesh, be it the Aksai Chin area, which is illegally occupied by the Chinese. Because the Chinese claims have been so old, since the 1950s, Aksai Chin, for example, is under the Chinese control. Arunachal Pradesh is an area that China time and time again says it is their territory. Since these claims made by China are so old, we should not expect that China automatically, all of a sudden, will take back the claims. That is not going to happen. China will continue with these claims because it is a part of their policy. There is a policy that they have called Tibet and 5 fingers. Let me first show you a photo so that you can understand. Look at this. China actually has this kind of a policy called Tibet plus 5 fingers. Now, what is this policy? Tibet, China considers is their part only. Tibet is the palm, and then there are 5 fingers to this palm as per China. Ladakh is one of this, Nepal is second, Sikkim is third, Bhutan is fourth, and Arunachal Pradesh is fifth. So China has always considered that not just Tibet, but the 5 fingers of Tibet are also a part of the Chinese territory. This is why China, over the past few decades, has always laid claims on different territories. Do you know when Sikkim became a part of India in 1975? For many years, China did not agree, or China did not accept this, that Sikkim is now officially a part of India. It took many years before China accepted, okay, Sikkim is a part of India. So this palm and the 5 finger strategy which China follows has been following on even today. Now, India and China although we have been confronting at the border with each other in the past few years, but if you actually look at the history of dispute between India and China, historically the disputes are very, very, very long. There have been multiple such agreements signed between the two sides where India and China have tried to resolve these disputes. For example, in 1988, the Indian Prime Minister visited China. After that, we had multiple agreements that were signed between India and China. There was 1993 agreement, 96 agreement, 2005, 2013. But the reality is, despite all these agreements, situation has not really improved. China, as per many experts, does not really want to resolve these border disputes with India. Maybe they want these kind of disputes to be open with India so that they can pressurize India whenever they want. They don't want a peaceful settlement, because in this way, if they actually settle these disputes peacefully, they will not be able to pressurize India whenever they want by coming at the border. This is also the reason why, despite all these different types of agreements, we have not been able to resolve disputes. For example, in 1993, the agreement was about joint mechanism to verify and settle the LAC-related disputes. That is, a joint commission, a joint team should be formed. Whenever there is a dispute at the LAC, both the sides should look at it. It meets twice in a year, but there has been no successful meeting so far. Whenever we have had any disputes, this committee has not been able to resolve those. Although we share close to 3,500 kilometers of the boundary, there are only 4 border personal meeting points. Means along the entire 3,500 kilometer boundary between India and China, there are only 4 places where soldiers actually can interact with each other. The problem here is, more the interaction, better will be the situation. Lesser the interaction, more will be the rumors. That is why we should increase the BPM or border personal meeting points also. The two sides also agreed that we should reduce the force along the LAC, but again on that also there has not been any progress. There has not been progress despite all these contracts signed between the two sides. The author here also gives certain suggestions. He recommends certain steps of how to improve the situation at the LAC. First, the author says that let's call the LAC into line of control. What is the difference between line of actual control and line of control? Line of control would be that both the sides agree that yes, this is the border between the two sides, at least for now. Line of actual control, on the other hand, is where the forces are right now. So rather than calling it line of actual control, we should rather have it or rechristen it as line of control on the map, so that both the sides agree that this is a part of their territory and this is a part of your territory. That can be the first suggestion. Second, the disputed territory should be treated as a no entry zone. Both the sides should agree that if there is a disputed territory, both the sides should remain away from it. Let it remain a neutral zone for now, till the time that wherever there is a dispute between the two sides, let not any of the two sides agree on this. Let it be a neutral zone only. Also, there can be joint patrolling of the disputed areas, so that only one side doesn't change the status quo automatically. We should also increase confidence building measures with each other. These are the steps that the person here, the author here, has recommended. The problem here is, if you look at these recommendations, this is nothing new. Trust me, if UPSC would have asked you what are the steps needed to improve India-China situation, you also would have written the same things. I'm sure none of you would have written that let's go on a war, let's boycott them. These are very generic recommendations. This is nothing that is out of the picture. It's not that these things have not been tried so far. There have been many of these things tried. We have had multiple meetings on the two sides trying to resolve the issue, but it has not been done so far. So the situation right now between India and China doesn't seem to be solvable just by following these kind of points time and time again. As I showed you, this is what the palm and the 5-finger strategy is. This is a shorter, a compact version I wanted to share with you of the contracts and the agreements signed between India and China. India and China have signed agreements in 93, 96, 2005, 12, 13. But again, if you see, none of these have resulted into any breakthrough. And there are multiple reasons for that. For example, as I said earlier as well, many people believe that China just does not want to resolve border disputes with India. Now, why is that the reason? Maybe China wants that they should be able to distract India whenever they want. There is one more point of view here, and now listen to this very carefully. It is assumed by China, for example, that India, being a superpower, is a bubble created by the US. The US wants to expand India's stature so that India can act as a counter to China. Because China does not want that, China wants to have at least one weak link with India so that whenever they want, they can irritate India by sending some soldiers at the border. They would not be able to do that if they resolve all the border disputes. So maybe China wants to have these pending border disputes continue so that whenever they want, they can actually come and irritate India. That is also one of the things that many people actually agree to. This was our second article for the day. Let me quickly take up a few other comments before I go ahead. Revati saying, do we need to remember all the agreements? Revati, at least remember the years when the agreements were signed. In the mains examination, if you have a question between India and China, you can actually give examples of how the agreements were signed. Even one-liners would be good enough. Rajbir is saying, if their name would be LOC, doesn't it make India accepting the part of Aksai into China? No, Rajbir, that is not the case. Like if you look at, let's say, towards Pakistan, the border between India and Pakistan is called the LOC. But even then, the area of Pakistan occupied Kashmir, illegally occupied by Pakistan, it's not that we don't accept it's our territory. We still say it's our territory. So that is not really the case. Arun is saying, can India, Bhutan, Nepal together start a war against China? I don't know. Maybe ask Bhutan and Nepal, call them up. I don't know. Then I have a question. Shrikant is saying, why LAC is also referred to as McMahon line. So Shrikant, no, the entire LAC is not called the McMahon line. McMahon line is just the border between Arunachal Pradesh and Tibet. That is because a similar agreement that was signed to make this, the representative from the side of the British his name was Mr. McMahon. So Mr. McMahon, the British representative who represented British India in the similar agreement of Tibet and Arunachal Pradesh, that is on whom the line is named, the McMahon line. Again, McMahon line is not the entire LAC. McMahon line is just the border between Arunachal and Tibet. Then, why India is not doing the same thing with China? Because also we are not China, right? We are India, so we can't do the same with China. It's not really the same thing. Okay, I'll take one or two more before I go ahead. Gaurav is saying, what should be exactly the way forward? Gaurav, the way forward are the recommendations only. Practically nothing would change from that, but again, there cannot be any other drastic way forward. The way forward only has to be optimistic. The recommendation that have been given, have more dialogues, have peaceful dialogues, have meetings, reduce troops as much as possible. That is how it works. Kishan is saying, changing the name to line of control, isn't it too optimistic to China? See, it's a suggestion that the author has given. It's not that you have to agree to it. I've told this multiple times, whenever you like this kind of an article, whenever you see this kind of an article, please don't think that you have to agree to everything that the author is saying. This is what the author's point of view is. You're free to disagree with that entirely. So no issues with that. You might think that no, we should not do this. You can do this. Okay, let's move ahead then. The third article that we have here is about a problem of deep fakes. Now, what exactly is deep fake? Why is it in the news? I hope all of you know this. Deep fake means creating a fake photo, a fake video with the help of machines. That is called deep fake. The reason why it is in the news is recently what happened was the day that you saw all the photos of Delhi police trying to curl down all the protests of the wrestlers, trying to physically assault the wrestlers, trying to physically contain the wrestlers. The same day, after a few minutes, a photo comes out of the wrestlers sitting in the bus with the Delhi police all smiling. This photo was shared by everyone. Everyone was discrediting the wrestlers, that see, they're only making sure that lies are spread. See, they are so happy. But the reality was that photo was actually a deep fake. It was not a real photo. And this is not the first time that something like this has happened. Deep fake is a problem that many countries are facing. For example, in US, there was a proper deep fake video where Barack Obama was criticizing Donald Trump and the video was not really true. This is what the deepfake technique is. Now, deepfake can be considered as a much more advanced version of Photoshop. We always had Photoshop where people could edit and make changes to the photo, etc. But for Photoshop, you require some of your own skills. Not everyone can use the Photoshop. For example, I can't use the Photoshop. But on the other hand, deepfake doesn't require you to actually give many inputs. Deepfake is more based on the capacity and the capability of the machine. If you have a proper machine, you have a proper software, they will be able to create those photos even without you having any skills about that. So a deepfake photo is actually extremely dangerous, especially the times that we are living in, where false news, fake news spreads like wildfire. Anyone who sends a video on your WhatsApp which has certain violence of one religion against the other, you will forward it to 10 more people, they will forward it to 100 more people, and before you know it, there will be riots in the entire city. And it has happened many times. There have been people who have been killed just on rumors. There have been people who have been lynched by the entire mob on rumors that they were stealing someone's child. All of these have been a reality in India and in many other parts of the world. And the problem of deep fake will only make it worse. As I said, India is not the only country that is facing these issues. Look at the US, where Barack Obama's video came up. It was a fake video where he was abusing Donald Trump. Again, these are just a few examples. Even in normal people's real life, these kind of cases can happen. There's also a problem of revenge porn. Means, let's say a person breaks up or has a divorce, or the girlfriend, the boyfriend breaks up. You are so angry that you make fake photos or videos of your ex-partner, and then you try and spread this all across the internet just because you want to take revenge. All these are the problems that deep fake have with themselves. Now, it is also related to the AI, artificial intelligence, and the technology that is emerging these days. Many of you would have used ChatGPT, I'm very sure. The problem with ChatGPT also is that this also has a very similar kind of a working model. There have been many instances of ChatGPT giving false information, which can be used in various ways. The problem here, as per the author, is that these companies who are making ChatGPT or who are making these kind of tools, rather than asking, should we do this? They ask themselves, can we do this or not? There's a big difference between the two. Should we do this or not means, does the world require this or not? Would it make the world a better place if we have this kind of a technology or not? On the other hand, can we do this means, is it possible for us to do this? If it is, I will do it. This is a big problem. This is what the author says, that this should not have been done, because there is a need for AI and for these kind of technologies to be regulated around the world. Right now, we do not have proper regulations in place. There are some countries which are making their own kind of rules. For example, China has had a very strong law against the deep fakes. China has passed a law banning deep fakes visuals. Any creator who makes it will be punished very severely in China. On smaller scale, there are many other countries that are making these kind of laws, but at the present moment, we do not have any international treaty right now to deal with the problem of deep fakes and the issues that AI will bring in the near future. Even right now, as you know, AI is eating up a lot of jobs. Ever since the ChatGPT has come into picture, jobs of content writers, for example, have gone away. Many other jobs are going away. And because of this, we need to stay one step ahead as per the author. Now, I wanted to share with you a few examples. First, an example of what China has done. China, just a few months back, introduced first of its kind regulation against deepfakes. They made something called Cyberspace Administration of China. It's an agency in the Chinese government. They issued regulations to prohibit the use of deepfakes without the permission of the subject. Means, if let's say you are making a photo of me, you have to take permission from me to use it. Without taking the permission of the person involved, you cannot use deepfakes. The issue with China, or the good part or issue, whatever you want to call it, with China is Their laws work in such a manner that if you do not follow this law, you don't have to wait for many years to get punishment. You can get punishment within a few days. Because in China, the judiciary also is a part of the Communist Party of China. Even the judiciary works as per the directions given by the Communist Party of China. So in China, if the government wants to punish you today, they will punish you today. In China's constitution, it's very clearly written. Their country doesn't have an army. The Communist Party of China has an army. Their country doesn't have a judiciary. The Communist Party of China has a judiciary. So this is how they work. So when they make a law that you will be punished for doing something bad, they will punish you on the same day that you commit the crime. Unlike some of the other countries. This is why those kind of laws work in a very different manner in China as compared to where they work in India. Now, in India, right now, we do not have any law against deepfakes. We do have the IT Act, which has certain provisions about fake news, etc. But specifically about deepfakes, we don't have a law in India right now. What can we do in order to deal with the deepfakes? First, build technology that can detect deepfakes. One example is Microsoft is creating an anti-deepfake technology to fight against misinformation. This tool is called Microsoft Video Authenticator. But again, it is still a work in progress. As the technology of deepfake improves, this technology also has to keep improving time and time again. Transparency has to be ensured by the government in introducing these laws. We need to have proper regulations like the one that China has. Many other parts of the world have these kind of laws, but India doesn't. We also need to educate more and more people against it. See, the problem is, let's take the case of those wrestlers only. The wrestlers photo that came out. How and why did you see the photo? How did I see the photo? Because the media showed it to us. If the media would not have showed it to us, we would never have seen the photo. So it is the responsibility of the media to first ascertain what is fake and what is not fake. If you educate the media first, put proper regulations on them, that can actually curb the problem of deepfakes to a very, very large extent. These are some of the things that can be done to deal with the problem of the deepfakes. This was our third article from the mains examination point of view. Before I go ahead with specific prelims related topic, let me quickly take up a few more comments. Okay. Simran is saying, why doesn't the government make some commissions to have proper policy and regulations? It's not that government doesn't. See, making these commissions doesn't really help because again, their recommendations are not really binding on the government. As new challenges come up, the governments also do make laws. It's not that government is not thinking about that, just that government has other priorities. Sonam, no, as I said, we do not have any specific deep fake law in India. Then I have a question. Deep fake is becoming a concern. How to overcome these and avoid them? Rashida, that is what is written. How to deal with deep fakes. That is, this slide is the answer to the question that you are asking. How to deal with deep fakes. This is the answer to that. So Dhakar is saying, what software is used to detect deep fakes? There is no software right now. As I said, Microsoft is making that software. It's a work in progress. There are many other companies like Google also is making one. Facebook also is in talks of making one. So there are different software that are being made, but it's just a work in progress right now. Banrakas is saying, nice name. Banrakas is saying how to make deep fakes. I don't know. Neither should you. So let's remove how deep fakes are made. Revati Singh, does ChatGPT do deepfake? So ChatGPT, I'll tell you. So ChatGPT is a name of a software. It's made by a company. I don't know if you have heard this or not. So deepfakes, let's not talk about let's talk about ChatGPT. ChatGPT is made by a company called DALL-E. DALL-E's first product was something like this only. I don't know how many of you know this or not. So what DALL-E's first product was before the ChatGPT, it was a product where you just had to input 1 or 2 lines and they will make a real photo out of it. For example, you just had to make a line, you just have to write a line, I want a photo of Mahatma Gandhi riding a horse. So it will give you a photo, a real photo of Mahatma Gandhi riding a horse. That is what their software was when DALL-E actually first started to work, and then they came to ChatGPT. So yes, the same company is working on that technology as well. But again, I have used it. It's a pretty interesting software. It gives you pretty interesting photos. You can use it in your free time. But I would suggest let's first complete the syllabus. Okay. Now that the questions are only about ChatGPT, let me come back here. So the next section where we want to talk about prelims specific news stories, let's go ahead with that. Okay, I'll just take one more question very quickly. Someone is saying, Hindu newspaper not available in my district. Don't worry, even I don't have Hindu newspaper delivered to my house. I have the e-paper subscription. If you don't have Hindu newspaper delivered to your district, to your house, buy the e-paper subscription. It is about the same money. I think it's even cheaper. Just download it online every single day at 6 a.m. You will get it. That is what I also read. So you don't have to be located in any one city. Okay, let's go ahead then. The next article from the point of view of the prelims is from Science. It is about the Higgs boson. So Higgs boson was a discovery that was made a few years back. There have been some questions also asked on this. Basically, why is it in the news? Some scientists at CERN have detected that the Higgs boson also decay into even smaller particles. They have detected that the Higgs boson decay into Z boson particles and into a photon, which is a very, very rare process. Earlier, it was assumed that the Higgs boson will not decay, but now it has been found that the Higgs boson also decay into even smaller particles. Now, Higgs boson in their own are subatomic particles. Remember, there used to be time when we thought molecule is the smallest particle, then we had atoms, that is the smallest particle, then we had even subatomic particles. So even you break down atoms into smaller parts. Then we thought, okay, Higgs boson is the smallest particle, but no, even that is decaying into smaller parts called the Z boson particle and the photon. Now, what is Higgs boson and why is it important? Let's try and understand this. Higgs boson is a type of a boson which actually carries subatomic particles. Also, it carries the force that a particle experiences when it moves to an energy field called the Higgs field. So there is Higgs, who was a separate scientist. Mr. Bose was a separate scientist. These together are called the Higgs boson. So a boson that goes through the Higgs energy field, the variation that it shows, this is how Higgs boson has been named. Now, what exactly is the importance of Higgs boson from the prelims point of view? Let's try and understand that. From the prelims point of view, the importance of Higgs boson is that it actually helps you to identify the mass of subatomic particle. It helps you to identify the mass of subatomic particles. Please do remember this. How any subatomic particle interacts with the Higgs boson, this is how you can identify the mass of that subatomic particle. So for example, the stronger that a subatomic particle interacts with the Higgs boson, the more mass it has. That is how we have been able to identify the mass of protons, neutrons, etc. That is, the interaction with Higgs boson tells us what exactly will be the mass. Since the entire matter is made of these particles, Higgs boson can actually tell us a lot of different things about how the universe works, about how the universe actually has this problem. The origin story of the universe can be found out by ensuring that we actually get to know about these masses. This is where the Higgs boson comes in extremely important. Also, there is a question of virtual particles as well. In science, you might have all heard about something called the quantum field theory. Quantum field theory says that if you actually study interactions of subatomic particles, it is entirely filled with virtual particles. The entire universe is filled with it. Why are they called virtual? Because these particles may exist right now and they may not exist later on. So their existence is not constant. These are called virtual particles. They may exist right now, they may not exist tomorrow, they may not exist after some time. This is what is virtual particles. There have been multiple studies conducted on the Higgs boson. under which the scientists around the world have been trying to understand how the entire universe was made, what are the other kind of subatomic particles that we have in the universe. We also have something called the standard model theory. Please remember, standard model theory says that a Higgs boson will decay into Z boson and a photon 0.1% of the time. Means it's a very rare occurrence for a Higgs boson to be decaying into Z boson and a photon. It doesn't happen very, very often. That is what the standard model theory is. This is the standard model theory. It's just a one-liner thing if you want to remember. Higgs boson will decay into Z boson and a photon if its mass is 125 electron volt. This is called electron volt, EV. C, and this is c square. C is the velocity of light, as you know. This is called electron volt per c square, or per square of the velocity of light. This is the standard hybrid model. These are some of the infographics. If you want, you can understand this, how the Higgs boson actually exists. From molecules, we have atoms, we have the nucleus, inside that we have protons, and then we have the Higgs boson, which is again a subatomic particle. This is also an infographic to help you understand how the Z boson is different. Z boson is said to be responsible for the weak force that causes the particle to then change its form and then decay even further. The next article that we have here is a new edition of the ranking, that is the NIRF, which stands for National Institutional Ranking Framework. In simple terms, this is a ranking introduced by the government of India because there were many private rankings going on around. Every magazine had its own ranking, that this is the first college, this is the second number college, third number college, to make sure those websites, rankings that are being published by private magazines, all of these do not influence the people. The government of India came up with their own set of rankings called the NIRF, where IIT-Madras has retained the number one spot once again. Now, I would not suggest you to remember exactly the result of the ranking. It's more important to focus on how the ranking actually works and how exactly is it calculated. For example, the NIRF works under the Ministry of Education. The recent edition of the 2023 rankings that came out, under which IIT-Madras has been named as the best education institute overall. So there's an overall ranking, then there are rankings for medical, science, and there is engineering, dental, arts, etc. There are different rankings for universities as well, depending upon different parameters. Usually there are 5 parameters that are taken into consideration. That is teaching, learning and resources, research and professional practice, graduation outcome, and 5th is outreach, inclusivity and perception. These are the different parameters that are taken into consideration in the NIRF ranking. I have one homework for you with regards to these rankings. Please search about this and let me know in the comment section later on. Tell me whether these rankings include every college in India or they don't include every college in India. If they do, how does it work? Or if they don't include every college in India, what does a college have to do to get included in these rankings? Okay, let me repeat, your homework is search whether these rankings include all the colleges in India or only a few. If they only include a few colleges in India, then what is the criteria under which a college can get included in these rankings? Search about this, let me know in the comment section after the video ends. Now the NIRF ranking, as I said, was started by the government of India in 2015. There have been, every single year there have been different rankings that have been coming out depending upon all the different parameters. These are the parameters that are taken into consideration. There are 5 in total: teaching, learning, resources, research, professional practice, graduation outcome. Graduation outcome means basically after graduation, what do you do? Do you get a job? What happens after that? Outreach, inclusivity. What are the different types of students that are learning here? Not just students, teachers, representation of women, representation of different classes, and perception in the industry. All these are taken into consideration. Only then at the end we get these kind of rankings. The last article that we have here is about how the satellites and AI can now help to certify whether the cotton fields are growing organic cotton or not. As you know, India is one of the largest producers of cotton in the entire world. As we are becoming more health conscious, everywhere in the world people are trying to shift towards organic produce. Doesn't matter what you eat, doesn't matter what you wear, we are trying to get into organic produce as much as possible. This is where a new initiative, which is a joint initiative from European Space Agency and Global Organic Textile Standard, GOTS. They have come together to now make new AI technology in satellites that will help us detect from the top whether certain fields are growing organic cottons or not. How will it be helpful? They will give cotton certification or organic cotton certification to those fields. So with India, what they will do is they will identify from the space itself whether certain fields of cotton are organic or not. They will give their certification so that now when that cotton is sold in the market, people can be assured that, okay, this is organic cotton, they might be ready to pay a higher price for that as well. This GOTS, that is Global Organic Textile Standard, is a joint collaboration of 4 organizations from different countries coming together. The reason why it is in the news is now this technology will be implemented in India also very soon. It has already been implemented in Uzbekistan. In Uzbekistan in 2021, they run a successful pilot project. It was successful. It was able to identify different fields based on whether cotton was organic or not. Now they will be bringing the same kind of technology to India as well. As I said, India and China are the largest producers of cotton in the entire world. Then we have countries such as the US, Brazil, Australia, Pakistan also. India till just a couple of years back was the largest producer. In fact, now we have at China that has just taken over India as the largest producer of cotton. But India and China are pretty neck to neck when it comes to producing of cotton around the entire world. Also, in terms of different states, do make a note. Gujarat is the largest producer of cotton in India, followed by Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh and Haryana. If you remember top 3 or 4, that would be good enough for you. Just remembering top 3 or 4 would be pretty good for the prelims examination point of view, even if you don't remember the entire list of how the states feature in this ranking. This brings us to the end of today's session of the Hindu Newspaper Analysis. There are a couple of practice questions right here in front of you. As always, do try and write answers to these questions. Do remember to check out the homework that I gave you. Leave those in the comment section. We read all the comments, whatever you write. I'll see you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Thank you so much for joining in. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.